Money FM 89.3. Best of breakfast.
Thanks for joining us on Money FM 89.3. Now, in many countries, financial inclusion is a critical challenge. One company in the Philippines is doing its bit to close the gap by opening the doors to digital lending for the unbanked and unlocking opportunities to millions of underserved Filipinos. Fuse Lending is the official lending arm of leading finance app GCash, the number one finance super app in the Philippines. For some of the lessons we can take away on his journey so far, we're checking now with Tony Isidro. He is the CEO of Fuse Lending. Tony, thanks for joining us today.
Hi, Ryan. It's a pleasure to be here.
All right, I'm going to need help to set a context of what's happening in the Philippines, right? You're providing access to credit. It remains quite elusive to a lot of Filipinos. How has GCash, through Fuse Lending, helped to address this issue in the past years?
That's true. So let me paint a picture first of the Philippine population. So a lot of the Filipinos are unbanked. So that means access to financial services and particularly credit is hard to come by. Imagine an ordinary Filipino with no collateral. And so therefore, he or she resorts to loan sharks and informal lending. So there was a central bank study that came out that says almost two-thirds of Filipinos rely on informal lending. And that means having to borrow from loan sharks where unfortunately interest rates can be very high, as high as 20% a week. And that's not even also including the unfair collection practices and harassment they get subjected to. And I think that's where we as Fuse Lending and as GCash come in, where using technology, we're able to provide access to fair lending where previously there was none.
All right, so who is it helping? I understand that there are farmers involved, there are a lot of homemakers as well. Give us an idea how that's changed lives.
Well, we're happy to say that to date we've served more than 5 million Filipinos. And these are Filipinos who come mainly from the middle to the lower income classes who, as I said, unfortunately don't have access to fair credit. And through the products and services we provide, we're able to give them access to that. And the way we do that is use technology and particularly the data we have on the digital footprint they have with the GCash app. Using that and using AI, we're able to determine the credit worthiness at an individual level and more importantly, able to do that at scale. So imagine, Ryan, so we're able to determine the offer for you, for me, and for millions of Filipinos. And it differs depending on the underwriting we're able to undertake for them.
So I'm imagining as a farmer, I'll be able to get capital to buy equipment. For a homemaker, I can maybe start a home business.
Yes, interestingly, the use cases we see for our users are very basic. And again, it tells you about the need they have. So the top use cases we have would be payment for utilities, for electricity, for water, for mobile phones, for internet. The other popular use of our credit would be for supermarket to provide food for the family. And yes, you're right also. We have a one-third of our borrowers who happen to be micro and small lenders, mom and pop shops basically, who use it as capital for their small businesses.
Yeah, so really opening the doors to new opportunities. Now, what have been your key learnings so far unlocking credit for millions of Filipinos? Are there still challenges and how can you solve these?
The problem is so immense. And so it's something that we continue to strive to address. Personally, one of the things I've realized over the years is that, and I'm guilty of this at the start, there's a misconception that people belong to the lower, to the income classes, don't know how to take care of their credit. But when we realize over the past 2-3 years when we've scaled up the business, the key is to give them the right access to it and they'll be very careful of it. They'll be very prudent and there's every intention to take care of it. And when we realize, when we talk to customers, it's really because it's their first access to formal lending. And so they're very responsible for it. And so that allows them to continuously access to that over time. And that continues to uplift the lives, not just of themselves, but of their families as well.
That's a very interesting perspective to look at how things are playing out in terms of the access to credit. Now, AI, like you mentioned, is disrupting key industries, including in banking. But as a disruptor yourself, how are you looking at maximizing this to boost your mission in making credit more accessible?
AI definitely plays a big role in the business. So I mentioned how we use AI on the underwriting portion of the business, and it has allowed us to scale. The other use of AI we've seen over the recent year actually is to use it on collection. So we've employed voice bots that utilize AI, and that has allowed us to scale collection services, do it more consistently, and avoid errors. At the same time, be able to reach more customers and help them not just in the disbursement process, but in this case, the repayment process as well.
Okay, so AI helping on both ends, lending as well as collecting.
Correct.
All right, what else can we expect from Fuse Lending in the future?
A lot. We're quite excited with the possibilities by which we can help more Filipinos. The core remains to be the use cases I mentioned, but there are opportunities to expand more to the underprivileged. You mentioned farmers, so that remains a priority for us. Farmers and fisher folks, their access to credit remains very limited. But we also look at lending we provide not just for rainy days but also for their dreams or for one days of Filipinos. So we're also looking at ways by which we can lend to eligible customers for education of their kids. But beyond regular customers or day-to-day customers, we're also looking at expanding loans towards micro and small businesses. So again, it's really that whole ecosystem, and it really goes back to Fuse and GCash's vision of finance for all, and it's really making more and more Filipinos financially included.
Different size of loans for different types of people.
Correct.
Well, as a fintech platform, what opportunities are you seeing to keep growing the lending business?
Well, as I said, the opportunity is really just so big. To date, I mentioned earlier, we've reached around 5 million Filipinos, but there's so many more in need. Though. And so we continue to innovate. We strive to innovate in terms of underwriting, so make more Filipinos eligible, but also in terms of the products and services we offer. So maybe something I can share that's interesting, late last year, in our objective to help more Filipinos, we actually launched our nano loans. So these are $2 loans over 2 weeks. And we saw the opportunity to help Filipinos really just who live on day-to-day, hand to mouth, and there's really just a need for that. And we've seen that business to be growing. And one of the things we've realized with that example is that there's actually good business to be seen in doing good. And so we want to do more of those innovations so that we're able to reach out to more Filipinos in need of fair credit.
All right, constantly innovating to cater to the market. We've been in conversation with Tony Isidro. He's the CEO of Fuse Lending. Tony, thanks so much for your time speaking to us at the Singapore FinTech Festival.
Thank you so much. And again, it's a pleasure to be here.
Money FM